television, in films, and with his music, died last night of cancer at the age of 71. Of all his parts, he was best known as Ralph Cramden, bus driver in The Honeymooners on television in the 50s.
Smoking was once one of Hollywood's most common habits. For many celebrities, cigarettes became part of their image, making them look stylish, confident, and larger than life. Fans copied what they saw on screen, never realizing the hidden cost behind the smoke. But away from the cameras, the reality was far different. Many famous stars struggled to quit, and over time, their health paid a heavy price. From legendary actors to beloved entertainers, these celebrities faced heartbreaking consequences that changed their lives forever. Their stories are shocking, emotional, and unforgettable. Which celebrity's smoking habit led to the most tragic outcome? Join us to find out. Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart did not just smoke in movies. He helped create an image that made cigarettes seem stylish and unforgettable. With his tired eyes, rough voice, and expression that looked as if he had heard every excuse imaginable, he made smoking appear like a natural part of his character. On screen, it looked effortless. Away from the cameras, however, the reality was far less appealing. Bogart smoked about 2 packs of cigarettes every day and was also known for drinking heavily. While audiences admired his tough and confident image, his health was slowly paying the price. He often struggled with coughing and fatigue. The effects of constant smoking and excessive drinking also left him looking worn out and contributed to memory problems. The public saw a fearless star. Behind the scenes, his body was dealing with the consequences of years of harmful habits. What made cigarettes such a memorable part of Bogart's image was how naturally they fit into his performances. During the early years of filmmaking, actors were often given long speeches with very little action. In one production, Bogart became bored with a scene and joked that it would only be entertaining if 2 camels were doing something shocking in the background. The director ignored the joke but suggested something much simpler. He encouraged Bogart to smoke during the scene. That small decision had a huge effect. Smoking gave Bogart something to do while delivering his lines. It added movement to scenes that might otherwise have felt dull and helped keep attention focused on his face. Every puff seemed to add personality to the character he was playing. Before long, cigarettes became closely linked to his calm, distant, and confident screen presence. What started as a simple acting choice eventually became one of the most recognizable parts of his career. Sadly, the same habit that helped build his legendary image also damaged his health. Bogart waited until 1956 to seek medical help for his ongoing cough and other problems. Doctors then discovered esophageal cancer, a disease connected to his long history of smoking. But 2 packs a day was minor compared to what others smoked. Let's dive into it. Rod Serling. Rod Serling was celebrated as one of Hollywood's most creative minds. As the man behind The Twilight Zone, he earned admiration, success, and a lasting place in television history. Audiences loved his imagination, and his work influenced countless people. Yet, behind the praise and recognition was a man carrying a heavy burden that few could see. Despite creating one of the most unforgettable television series ever made, Serling struggled with deep self-doubt. Success did not erase his fears. Applause did not silence the voice in his mind that constantly questioned whether he could ever achieve something as remarkable again. When The Twilight Zone came to an end, those worries became even stronger. The challenge of following such an extraordinary achievement weighed heavily on him. Every new project seemed to come with enormous pressure. Instead of feeling excited about future opportunities, he often felt trapped by the shadow of his own success. The masterpiece he had created became a standard that seemed impossible to match. As the pressure grew, Serling turned increasingly to cigarettes and alcohol. He hoped they would ease his anxiety and quiet the constant fear of falling short. For a time, they may have seemed like an escape. In reality, they were slowly taking a serious toll on his health. At one point, Serling smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day and drank heavily. Despite appearing successful and respected, he struggled privately. Years of strain eventually led to a clogged artery. In 1975, he underwent bypass surgery, but his heart could not withstand the procedure. Serling died at just 50 years old. Jackie Gleason. Jackie Gleason did not slowly work his way into fame. He arrived with a presence so powerful that audiences could hardly look away. When he appeared as Ralph Cramden on The Honeymooners, he became one of the most recognizable faces on television. His large build, booming voice, and incredible comic timing made every scene feel alive. He had a natural ability to command attention, and viewers loved him for it. Everything about Jackie Gleason seemed bigger than life. His popularity grew because he brought a unique energy to the screen. Whether he was delivering a joke or reacting with a simple expression, he knew exactly how to entertain an audience. People welcomed him into their homes week after week, and his performances left a lasting impression. He became a beloved star whose personality seemed impossible to forget. Away from the spotlight, however, Gleason lived with the same larger-than-life intensity that made him famous. His appetite was enormous, and his weight often changed dramatically over the years. At different times, it ranged from about 230 pounds to more than 330 pounds. Friends and colleagues were often amazed by how much he could eat in a single sitting. Large meals were a regular part of his routine, and he sometimes finished them with an entire gallon of ice cream. Food was only one part of a lifestyle built around excess. Gleason also drank heavily and developed a reputation for consuming large amounts of whiskey. Those who knew him often described alcohol as a constant presence in his daily life. While his fans saw a confident entertainer, the habits he practiced behind the scenes were slowly affecting his health. Cigarettes became another major part of his routine. Gleason was known as a chain smoker and could go through as many as 5 packs in a day. The combination of smoking, drinking, overeating, and carrying extra weight placed tremendous strain on his body. He passed away at the age of 71 from colon cancer, leaving behind both a remarkable legacy and an important lesson. You might think the men smoked much until you see the women on the list. Stick around. Bette Davis. Bette Davis was known as the Queen of the Warner Lot, a title that perfectly matched her commanding presence. She was bold, intelligent, and impossible to overlook. With one glance, she could capture an audience's attention and hold it completely. Her performances were powerful, emotional, and unforgettable, helping her become one of the most respected actresses of her generation. Throughout her remarkable career, Davis built a reputation for excellence. She became the first actor to receive 5 consecutive Academy Award nominations for acting, a milestone that highlighted her extraordinary talent. She also won 2 Academy Awards, securing her place among Hollywood's greatest stars. Her success was not based on popularity alone. It came from dedication, skill, and a determination to bring every character to life in a believable way. While audiences admired her talent, another part of her life became almost as famous as her performances. Davis developed a strong connection with cigarettes, and over time smoking became closely associated with her image. Many people remembered her with a cigarette in hand, both on screen and away from the cameras. A famous joke made during a roast by Henry Fonda suggested that after knowing Davis for 38 years, he had the cigarette burns to prove it. The remark earned laughter, but it also reflected how often cigarettes seemed to be present around her. Smoking had become a constant companion throughout much of her life. Davis smoked in only a quarter of her films and never endorsed cigarette brands, yet she became closely associated with smoking. She insisted on realism, believing smoking should look natural when required by a character. Off-screen, she reportedly smoked 4 packs of Vanguard cigarettes daily and rarely went more than 10 minutes without one. What makes her story especially remarkable is that she lived to the age of 81. She was not ultimately taken by a smoking-related disease. Instead, she passed away from breast cancer. Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn seemed to embody elegance in its purest form. With her graceful movements, warm smile, and gentle presence, she captivated audiences around the world. She became one of the most beloved stars in film history through unforgettable performances in Breakfast at Tiffany's, Roman Holiday, and My Fair Lady. Everything about her appeared refined and timeless. To many people, she represented beauty, charm, and sophistication unlike anyone else. Her image was so polished that even the smallest details became iconic. Whether she was walking across a movie set or appearing in a famous photograph, she carried herself with a natural grace that made her stand out. Audiences admired her not only for her talent, but also for the kindness and quiet strength she seemed to project. Behind that admired image, however, was a habit that told a very different story. Audrey Hepburn was reportedly a heavy smoker for much of her adult life. Some accounts suggest that she smoked between 2 and 3 packs of cigarettes each day. For anyone, that amount would be significant. For a woman remembered for her delicate and graceful appearance, it created a striking contrast. Hollywood often presented smoking as stylish and attractive. On screen, a cigarette could appear sophisticated when held by a glamorous star. In Hepburn's hands, it sometimes looked like just another part of her elegant image. To audiences, it could seem harmless or even fashionable. Away from the cameras, though, the reality was far different. Smoking remained a part of her life through years of fame, responsibility, and personal challenges. While the public admired her success and beauty, cigarettes quietly followed her in the background. They became one of the less visible parts of a life that many people viewed as almost perfect. Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. was one of the brightest stars of his generation. As a member of the legendary Rat Pack, he became part of a group that seemed to define cool for an entire era. Alongside some of the biggest names in entertainment, he helped create an image filled with confidence, charm, and endless excitement. To audiences, it looked like a world where every night was unforgettable and every performance was effortless. The Rat Pack became famous for its stylish image. Fans often pictured a glamorous life surrounded by laughter, drinks, and constant celebration. Over time, however, stories revealed that some parts of that image were not always exactly as they appeared. What looked like whiskey in a glass could sometimes be apple juice. Many of the stories that helped build the group's reputation were often more complicated than the public realized. For Sammy Davis Jr., though, one habit was very real. Smoking was not simply part of his image. It was a regular part of his life and his performances. Unlike some of the myths surrounding celebrity culture, this was something he genuinely embraced. What made his smoking habit especially remarkable was the way he incorporated it into his stage act. Sammy would often smoke while performing songs. For most people, smoking is harmful enough. For a singer whose voice is the foundation of a career, it can be even more damaging. His voice was one of his greatest gifts, yet he continued to expose it to cigarette smoke night after night. One of his most memorable stage routines involved taking a puff from a cigarette during a song and then releasing the smoke as he sang the next note. Audiences saw it as smooth, confident, and stylish. It became part of the performance that helped make him unforgettable. Behind the scenes, however, the habit was creating risks that were not immediately visible. At one point, Nat King Cole warned him about the potential harm. He explained that the heat from cigarette smoke could damage the vocal cords. Despite the warning, Sammy continued the practice. The performances continued, and smoking remained part of the act. Years later, during the 1980s, problems with his voice began to appear. His manager arranged for him to see a throat specialist. The examination confirmed what had been warned about long before. Singing while smoking had caused inflamed nodules on his vocal cords. Number 1, knowing the damage he was already into, decided to send a warning to the world as a last resort. Who's that? Stay with us till the end to find out. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn burst into Hollywood during the late 1930s with a charm that seemed impossible to resist. Handsome, confident, and full of energy, he quickly became one of the biggest stars of his era. Audiences loved watching him in films such as The Charge of the Light Brigade, The Adventures of Robin Hood, and The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex. On screen, he played daring heroes who faced danger without fear. He looked strong, adventurous, and completely in control. Away from the cameras, however, Flynn lived a life that was often just as dramatic as the characters he portrayed. His reputation for wild behavior became almost as famous as his acting career. He seemed drawn to excitement, risk, and excess, creating headlines that frequently attracted as much attention as his films. Flynn shared a home with David Niven, and the pair jokingly referred to it as Cirrhosis by the Sea. The nickname revealed a great deal about the lifestyle they enjoyed. Gatherings there were known for heavy drinking and endless entertainment. Flynn became especially famous for his ability to consume large amounts of alcohol. Friends often spoke about his remarkable stamina when it came to drinking. His appetite for excitement extended beyond parties. Flynn and filmmaker John Huston reportedly entertained themselves at dull social events with bare-knuckle boxing matches. While others might have settled for conversation, Flynn seemed to prefer something far more adventurous. As the years passed, his drinking habits became increasingly extreme. Reports suggested that he even found creative ways to bring alcohol onto movie sets when it was not permitted. He also struggled with opium use. Combined with smoking, constant partying, and a fast-paced lifestyle, these habits gradually began affecting his appearance and overall health. Movie studios worked hard to maintain his image as a glamorous leading man, but it became increasingly difficult to separate the star from the scandals surrounding him. His reputation for reckless behavior and controversial relationships often overshadowed his professional achievements. By the late 1940s, the effects of his lifestyle were becoming impossible to ignore. His health steadily declined, and he later returned to the screen in roles that often portrayed heavy drinkers. The performances felt uncomfortably close to reality. At the age of 50, Flynn suffered a heart attack in Vancouver while attempting to sell his beloved yacht, Zaka, due to financial difficulties. An autopsy revealed severe physical deterioration, including significant liver damage. Spencer Tracy. Spencer Tracy was one of Hollywood's most respected actors, admired for performances that felt honest, natural, and deeply human. On screen, he often appeared calm, strong, and dependable. Audiences saw a man who seemed steady in every situation, someone who could bring warmth and sincerity to any role. His talent earned him lasting admiration and made him one of the most celebrated stars of his generation. Behind the success, however, Tracy faced personal struggles that followed him throughout much of his adult life. Smoking, alcohol, pills, and problems with excess weight gradually became part of his daily reality. These habits were not temporary challenges. Over time, they became burdens that placed increasing pressure on his health and well-being. For many years, the effects remained mostly hidden from the public. Tracy continued working and maintained the professional image that audiences knew so well. Yet his body was slowly carrying the consequences of years of unhealthy habits. As he grew older, those consequences became more difficult to ignore. By the time he entered his 60s, his health had begun to decline significantly. The years of smoking, drinking, medication use, and weight-related struggles were taking a visible toll. What had once seemed manageable was becoming a serious concern. A major turning point came on July 21st, 1963. Tracy was rushed to the hospital after suffering a severe episode of breathlessness. It was a frightening experience that highlighted just how serious his condition had become. The health warnings that had accumulated over the years were no longer distant possibilities. They had become an urgent reality. His difficulties continued to grow. In July of 1965, doctors diagnosed him with hypertensive heart disease. The diagnosis cast a shadow over his remaining years and served as another reminder of how fragile his health had become. Every day seemed to bring new challenges and new reasons for concern. The following year proved especially difficult. Tracy experienced several serious health scares as his condition worsened. His declining strength gradually limited his independence. Much of his time was spent at home, separated from the active life he had once enjoyed. For a man who had spent decades captivating audiences on movie screens, this period of confinement was particularly painful. Clark Gable. During Hollywood's golden age, Clark Gable was more than a movie star. He was one of the most admired and recognizable faces in the entertainment world. His charm, confidence, and commanding screen presence earned him the famous title of the King of Hollywood. Audiences were drawn to his strong voice, striking appearance, and natural ability to captivate every scene he entered. He did not simply become famous. He became a symbol of classic Hollywood itself. Gable reached legendary status through a series of memorable performances. One of his most famous roles was Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind.
Only $25 to give you
$150 in gold.
For what lady, sir?
For Mrs. Charles Hamilton.
A character whose confidence and charisma became unforgettable. Throughout his career, he received 3 Academy Award nominations and won the award for It Happened One Night. His success placed him among the most celebrated actors of his generation and secured his place in film history. At the height of his fame, Gable made a surprising decision. In 1942, he stepped away from Hollywood and joined the United States Army Air Forces. Rather than remaining in the comfort of movie studios, he chose to serve his country during a time of war. He was assigned the rank of captain and led a 6-man motion picture unit responsible for filming material used in a gunnery training project. While stationed in the United Kingdom, Gable participated in dangerous missions alongside military crews. He flew 5 combat missions, including one over Germany, serving as an observer gunner aboard B-17 Flying Fortresses. His service demonstrated courage and dedication beyond the world of entertainment. For his efforts, he received both the Air Medal and the Distinguished Flying Cross. When his military service ended, he left with the rank of Major and a reputation that extended far beyond the silver screen. Yet behind the success, awards, and military honors, his health faced a growing challenge. For more than 30 years, Gable smoked approximately 3 packs of unfiltered cigarettes every day. He also smoked cigars and large amounts of pipe tobacco. These habits became a constant part of his life and gradually affected his health. On November 16, 1960, Clark Gable suffered his 4th heart attack in Los Angeles. He passed away soon afterward. Now for the top 3, one of them became a cigarette ambassador. Stay with us to find out who. Richard Burton. In Hollywood's golden era, Richard Burton stood out as one of the most powerful and unforgettable actors of his time. He possessed a remarkable voice that could command attention the moment he spoke. Whether delivering dramatic speeches or quiet moments of emotion, Burton had a rare ability to make every performance feel important. His talent, charisma, and strong screen presence earned him worldwide admiration and secured his place among cinema's most respected stars. Audiences were fascinated by the intensity he brought to his roles. He seemed capable of filling an entire theater with nothing more than a few carefully spoken words. His performances carried strength, passion, and depth, making him one of the most recognizable actors of his generation. On screen, he appeared larger than life, a man whose confidence and talent seemed limitless. Away from the cameras, however, Burton lived with the same intensity that defined his acting. His personal life often reflected the powerful energy that audiences saw in his performances. Among the habits that became closely associated with him, none was more persistent than smoking. Burton was not an occasional smoker. Cigarettes were a constant presence in his daily life. What began as a habit eventually became something much larger, following him throughout his career and personal life. Those who knew him often recognized how deeply smoking had become part of his routine. In an interview with Sir Ludovic Kennedy in December of 1977, Burton revealed the astonishing extent of his cigarette consumption. He stated that he smoked between 60 and 100 cigarettes every day. The number was remarkable and difficult for many people to imagine. For most individuals, even a small fraction of that amount would be considered excessive. For Burton, however, it had become an ordinary part of daily life. Accounts from people close to him suggested the habit may have been even more extreme. In the book, Richard Burton, My Brother, published in 1988 by Graham Jenkins, Burton's younger brother, claimed that the actor smoked at least 100 cigarettes each day. Such descriptions painted a picture of a man whose dependence on tobacco had reached extraordinary levels. John Wayne. John Wayne became one of the most recognizable figures in Hollywood history. With his commanding presence, deep voice, and confident style, he seemed to represent the spirit of the American frontier. Audiences around the world admired him as the ultimate screen hero. Whether he was playing a cowboy, a soldier, a lawman, or a determined adventurer, Wayne had a way of making every character feel larger than life. Over the course of a remarkable career, he appeared in more than 170 films, including 142 westerns. For more than 4 decades, he remained one of Hollywood's biggest and highest-paid stars. Standing 6 feet 4 inches tall and weighing around 225 pounds, he possessed the physical presence that perfectly suited the roles that made him famous. His characters often appeared fearless, strong, and ready to face any challenge. To moviegoers, Wayne seemed almost unstoppable. His performances created the image of a rugged hero who could overcome danger through courage and determination. Yet, behind the scenes, his real life was far different from the characters he portrayed on screen. Although he looked strong, Wayne struggled with habits that gradually affected his health. He dealt with weight problems and was not known for maintaining a high level of physical fitness. More importantly, he developed a serious smoking habit that began during his high school years. Cigarettes became a constant part of his daily routine, and he often smoked from morning until night. Smoking was not his only challenge. Wayne also developed a reputation for heavy drinking. As the day progressed, alcohol sometimes affected his behavior. Reports from later years suggested that some directors preferred to complete filming earlier in the day to avoid potential difficulties caused by excessive drinking. This reality stood in sharp contrast to the controlled and heroic figures he portrayed on screen. During the 1950s, Wayne also appeared in magazine advertisements and television commercials promoting Camel cigarettes.
Well, after you've been making a lot of strenuous scenes, you like to sit back and enjoy a cool, mild, good-tasting cigarette. And that's just what Camels are.
His public image helped present smoking as acceptable and appealing to many people. Meanwhile, his own tobacco use reportedly increased to an astonishing 7 packs of unfiltered Camel cigarettes each day. The amount was extraordinary and reflected just how deeply smoking had become part of his life. Eventually, the effects of those habits could no longer be ignored. In 1964, Wayne underwent surgery to remove most of his left lung due to tobacco-related health problems. Although he continued living and working afterward, the damage had already been done. 15 years later, complications from stomach cancer led to his death at the age of 72. Yul Brynner. Yul Brynner stood apart from many Hollywood stars who were known for heavy smoking. His story became memorable not only because of his success, but also because of the powerful lesson he left behind. While many celebrities ignored the dangers of smoking or refused to talk about them, Brynner chose a different path. In the final chapter of his life, he transformed his personal tragedy into a warning that would reach millions of people. Brynner was famous for his commanding presence on both the movie screen and the Broadway stage. He had a powerful look that immediately captured attention. With his confident posture, distinctive appearance, and intense gaze, he seemed almost impossible to intimidate. Audiences admired him because he projected strength, confidence, and authority. Whenever he entered a scene, he naturally became the center of attention. Behind that strong image, however, was a habit that was quietly harming his health. Smoking became a major part of his life for many years. Reports suggested that he smoked as many as 5 packs of cigarettes each day. Such an extreme level of smoking went far beyond an occasional habit. Cigarettes became a constant presence throughout his daily routine, following him through years of fame, performances, and public admiration. For a long time, the consequences remained hidden. Brynner continued to work, entertain audiences, and maintain the powerful image that made him famous. Yet the damage caused by years of smoking was slowly building. Eventually, the effects could no longer be ignored. Brenner developed lung cancer, a disease directly connected to his long history of smoking. The diagnosis marked a devastating turning point in his life. As his condition worsened, he faced the reality of the harm that tobacco had caused. Before his death, Brenner decided to leave behind something deeply meaningful. He recorded a public service announcement for the American Cancer Society, knowing it would be shown after he was gone. This decision gave the message extraordinary impact. It was not simply advice from a celebrity. It was a warning from someone who had experienced the consequences firsthand. In the recording, Brenner appeared noticeably weaker than the powerful figure audiences remembered. His voice had become frail, and his appearance reflected the effects of illness. Looking directly into the camera, he urged people not to make the same mistake he had made. The message was simple, direct, and unforgettable. The footage was based on comments he made during an appearance on Good Morning America, where he discussed what he would tell smokers if given the chance. His words became one of the most powerful anti-smoking messages ever delivered. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.